The higher you rise, the fewer voices you can trust. And that is exactly why the powerful learn to stand alone. Power is not built in the crowd. It is built in the silence where no one is watching. True power thrives in solitude because it protects clarity and independence. Power is not just about control over others. It is about control over yourself. When you are surrounded by too many voices, too many opinions, you lose your center. The noise of others' desires begins to drown out your own judgment. Solitude acts as a shield. It creates a quiet space where you can think without interference, where your decisions are born from reason rather than reaction. Clarity is fragile. It is easily clouded by praise, criticism, and the constant pull of other people's emotions. When you are always in the company of others, you start to see the world through their fears, their hopes, their illusions. Solitude strips all of that away. It forces you to confront reality exactly as it is, not as you wish it to be, not as others tell you it is, but as it truly stands before you. That confrontation can be uncomfortable, even painful, but it is the only way to see clearly enough to act decisively. Independence, too, is born in solitude. If your thoughts are always shaped by others, if your choices are always swayed by their expectations, you are never truly free. You are only a reflection of the crowd. Solitude gives you the strength to become original, to think thoughts that are not borrowed, to make moves that are not predictable. It builds the inner foundation that allows you to stand firm when everyone else is bending. Think of it this way. A tree does not grow strong in constant sunlight. It grows strong by withstanding the storm, by sinking its roots deep into the earth, where no one can see them. Solitude is where those roots are formed. It is where you learn who you are without applause, where you discover what you truly value when no one is watching. And once you know that, no amount of pressure from the outside world can break you. This is why history's most powerful figures spent time alone. Leaders, philosophers, innovators, they all retreated from the crowd at some point, not because they hated people, but because they needed to protect the purity of their own vision. If you allow too many hands on the wheel of your mind, you will crash. If you allow too many voices to guide your steps, you will wander in circles. Solitude removes the interference, clears the static, and lets the signal come through. It is in this silence that strategies are born. It is in this silence that you can see patterns no one else sees, anticipate moves no one else can imagine, prepare for storms no one else expects. This is why solitude is not weakness. It is the hidden forge where power is tempered, hardened, and made unbreakable. The person who cannot be alone will always need reassurance. The person who cannot be alone will always hesitate, always seek permission, always wait for the crowd before acting. And that hesitation is fatal. So power thrives in solitude, because solitude produces clarity, and clarity produces action. It thrives because independence is the only shield strong enough to protect it. A leader who is too dependent on others is like a fortress with open gates. Sooner or later, someone will walk in and take everything. Isolation forces leaders to see the world as it is, not as others wish it to be. When you are surrounded by people, you are surrounded by their agendas, their biases, their fears, their hopes, and their illusions. Every person you speak to has a stake in how you perceive reality. Some will want you to see only the danger, so you stay cautious. Others will want you to see only opportunity, so you act in ways that benefit them. Few will ever tell you the truth exactly as it is, because truth is rarely convenient. This is why isolation becomes a crucial tool for anyone seeking power. When you step away from the noise, you step away from the distortions that others place in front of your eyes. You begin to see things as they really are, without the fog of other people's emotions and manipulations clouding your judgment. Most people live in a world built out of stories, not facts. They believe what is comfortable, not what is true. They surround themselves with ideas that confirm their feelings, not ones that challenge them. This is fine for ordinary life, but it is deadly for power. A leader who sees the world through comforting illusions is a leader who is easily surprised, easily manipulated, easily overthrown. Reality is indifferent to our feelings. It does not care about what is fair or unfair, right or wrong, kind or cruel. It simply is. Isolation is where a leader learns to accept this truth, where they can strip away the comforting lies and see the raw mechanics of how the world operates. When a leader is alone, there is no one to flatter them, no one to reassure them, no one to tell them what they want to hear. There is only the quiet voice of reason, the cold facts of their situation, and the weight of their decisions. This can be terrifying at first. Many people cannot bear this kind of solitude, because it removes the emotional cushions they rely on. It forces them to confront their own weaknesses and the harshness of life. But it is precisely this confrontation that strengthens them. It is in this lonely space that they begin to see not just what they want to happen, but what will happen if they do nothing. They begin to notice the patterns of human behavior, how people act under fear, how they act under temptation, how they betray, how they stay loyal, and why. Isolation trains perception the way darkness trains the eyes to see. When you are away from the constant chatter, small details begin to stand out. You notice the slight hesitation in a person's voice, the hidden motive behind their suggestion, the subtle shift in the balance of power in a room. You become a sharper observer of reality, because you have trained your mind to be still, to listen, to watch without immediately reacting. Most people are so busy responding to what is happening around them that they never actually study it. The isolated leader learns to pause, to see the game unfolding from a higher vantage point, and therefore can act with precision instead of impulse. Isolation also protects leaders from being trapped in the illusions of the crowd. Crowds are emotional creatures. They are prone to hysteria, to fear, to sudden surges of anger or adoration. A leader who spends too much time immersed in the crowd will inevitably start to feel what they feel. They will begin to panic when the crowd panics, to celebrate when the crowd celebrates, to follow when they should be leading. Distance allows a leader to separate from that current and ask the most important question of all: what is really happening here? Not what people say is happening, not what the rumors claim, not what the emotional atmosphere suggests, but what is real. This ability to see clearly gives a leader an enormous advantage. It allows them to prepare for crises before anyone else notices they are coming. It allows them to recognize opportunities that others overlook, because they are blinded by fear or excitement. It allows them to stay calm when everyone else is losing their composure, which in turn makes them appear stronger and more capable. This calmness is not an act. It is the natural result of having seen reality without distortion, and having already accepted it. But there is another layer to this. Seeing the world as it is does not only mean seeing external events clearly, it also means seeing oneself clearly. Isolation removes the constant feedback of other people's opinions, which can become a mirror we get addicted to. When no one is there to praise you or criticize you, you are forced to examine your own actions with honesty. You begin to ask, am I doing this because it is right, or because I want to be liked? Am I making this choice because it is wise, or because I am afraid of looking weak? This kind of internal clarity is perhaps the greatest gift of solitude. A leader who is brutally honest with themselves cannot be deceived for long by others, because they have already confronted the lies within. This is why those who seek true power often retreat before they rise. They disappear from the public eye for a time, not to escape the world, but to learn to see it. They cut away the noise, detach from the constant influence of friends, advisors, and enemies alike, until their mind becomes still enough to reflect reality accurately. When they return, they move differently. They are no longer reacting to life. They are shaping it. Their isolation has given them a rare gift, perspective. And perspective is what allows them to be 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Isolation is not loneliness. It is training. It is the training ground where vision becomes clear, where strategy becomes sharp, where illusions fall away. Leaders who embrace this process become dangerous in the best sense of the word. They cannot be fooled, cannot be easily swayed, cannot be led by the nose. They stand apart because they have seen the world, not through the filters of other people's wishes, but through the cold, unblinking lens of truth. And that is why, when they act, their actions carry weight. They are not reacting to noise. They are acting from clarity. Being alone shields power from manipulation and emotional sabotage, because it creates a protective barrier between you and the influence of others. People often imagine manipulation as something obvious, a direct lie, a betrayal, a trick. But most manipulation is subtle. It happens in conversations, in body language, in tone of voice. It happens when people hint at what they want rather than say it outright, when they appeal to your emotions rather than your reason, when they use praise or criticism to guide your behavior. The more time you spend surrounded by others, the more exposed you become to these invisible strings pulling at your mind. Being alone cuts those strings. It allows you to hear your own thoughts without someone else's desires hiding inside them. Every person you interact with carries an agenda, whether they are aware of it or not. They want something: your time, your energy, your resources, your approval, your support. Some want to help you, some want to use you, some want to control you. When you are constantly available, constantly present, you give them countless opportunities to push you toward their goals. They can catch you when you are tired, when you are distracted, when you are emotionally vulnerable. They can influence your decisions in ways you might not even notice until it is too late. But when you spend time alone, when you step back, you break that constant access. You create distance that forces people to approach you with intention rather than manipulation. Emotional sabotage is even more dangerous, because it bypasses the intellect and goes straight for the heart. People may not consciously intend to sabotage you, but their fears, insecurities, and emotions can bleed into your own if you stay too close for too long. Spend enough time around anxious people, and you will begin to feel their anxiety. Spend enough time around bitter people, and you will start to see the world through their bitterness. Soon your decisions are no longer your own. They are reactions to feelings that were never yours to begin with. Being alone is the only way to separate your emotional state from the emotional state of those around you. It gives you the space to reset, to let their storms pass without pulling you into them. Solitude creates emotional neutrality. In that neutral space, you can analyze events and people without the fog of attachment. You can ask yourself, is this person advising me because it benefits me, or because it benefits them? Are they warning me because there is real danger, or because they are projecting their own fear? Are they praising me because I did something worthy, or because they want something in return? These questions are nearly impossible to answer when you are caught in the moment, surrounded by voices pulling you in every direction. But when you step away, when you sit alone with your thoughts, the answers become clearer. The emotional pressure fades, and you can see who is truly on your side and who is trying to steer you for their own gain. Another way being alone protects power is by allowing you to delay your reaction. Most manipulation works because it demands a quick response. Agree now, decide now, give now, commit now. The manipulator relies on urgency to keep you from thinking clearly, but solitude slows the game down. When you are used to being alone, you are comfortable with waiting. You do not rush to answer. You do not rush to act. and in that pause, manipulation loses its force. Emotional sabotage only works when you are caught in the heat of the moment. Distance cools the moment down and lets you respond with strategy rather than impulse. Consider also that power attracts not only allies but enemies. The higher you rise, the more people will try to influence you, mislead you, or play on your emotions. They might flatter you to lower your guard, insult you to provoke a reaction, or spread rumors to make you act rash. If you are constantly immersed in the social noise, you will be reacting all day, defending yourself, arguing, proving, explaining. This drains your energy and shifts your focus away from building and protecting your power. But when you retreat into solitude, their attacks lose their grip on you. They cannot reach your emotions if you do not give them access. They cannot control your decisions if you are not immediately present to be swayed by their pressure. Being alone is also a form of self-respect. It is a declaration that your time and mental clarity are too valuable to be left unguarded. Manipulators prey on those who are too eager to please, too available, too desperate for connection. When you learn to be content in your own company, you no longer chase approval, which means emotional traps no longer work on you. No one can guilt you into compliance if you are comfortable saying no. No one can flatter you into foolishness if you no longer need their prey. Solitude strengthens this inner independence until it becomes unshakable. Solitude allows you to study patterns of manipulation from a safe distance. You can replay conversations in your mind and notice what you missed in the moment. The small suggestion that tried to lead you, the shift in tone meant to pressure you, the guilt-laced phrase meant to corner you. Each time you reflect, you grow more immune. Each time you see through a trick, your mind becomes harder to trap. Over time, this makes you almost impossible to manipulate, because you have trained yourself to detect the strings before they pull you. Power is not just about commanding others, it is about remaining uncommanded yourself. If you can be emotionally hijacked, if you can be easily provoked, if you can be pushed into decisions through guilt, flattery or fear, then your power is not truly yours. It belongs to whoever knows how to push your buttons. Solitude is where you deactivate those buttons. It is where you train yourself to respond instead of react, to think instead of obey, to lead instead of follow. This is why the most powerful people often seem calm, distant, even cold. They have built a wall around their emotions, not out of cruelty but out of necessity. That wall keeps manipulation on the outside where it belongs. Being alone does not mean cutting off all human connection. It means controlling the terms of connection. It means deciding when you will engage, on what level, and for how long. It means staying rooted enough in your own mind that no one can reach in and steer you without your consent. And once you have that level of control, your power becomes solid, grounded, untouchable. Emotional sabotage stops working, manipulation fails, and you stand free, perhaps alone, but fully sovereign over yourself. Those who seek influence must learn to stand apart without losing connection to reality, because standing apart is where their strength is forged, but staying connected is what keeps their strength useful. It is a delicate balance, to be separate enough to think clearly, yet aware enough to understand what truly moves the world. Too much distance, and a person becomes detached, arrogant, blind to the needs and emotions of others. Too little distance, and they are swept away by the tides of public opinion and personal attachments. Influence is the art of walking this razor's edge, of seeing from above, while still having your feet firmly on the ground. Standing apart begins with a decision. It is the decision to no longer think like everyone else, to no longer seek the safety of the crowd, to no longer live by the same assumptions that govern ordinary minds. It means becoming a watcher of the world, rather than just a participant. You are still among people, but you are no longer fully of them. You observe their behavior, their hopes, their fears, their contradictions, and you begin to understand them better than they understand themselves. This perspective is what allows you to predict their actions, to anticipate their reactions, and to guide them without their even realizing it. But this perspective only comes when you have the courage to stand apart, to resist the constant pull to conform. At the same time, standing apart can become a trap if it turns into isolation so complete that you lose sight of reality. A leader who no longer listens, who no longer feels the pulse of the people, who no longer understands the needs and struggles of those they influence, becomes dangerous in a different way, not powerful, but delusional. History is full of rulers, executives, and thinkers who locked themselves away and began to believe their own myths. They mistook their perspective for truth and ignored the shifting winds around them. When the storm came, they were unprepared because they had forgotten that reality does not bend to their will. This is why connection to reality must be maintained deliberate. Standing apart is not about cutting yourself off. It is about stepping back far enough to see clearly, then stepping forward again to test what you have seen. The leader must move between two worlds: the quiet world of solitude, where ideas are born, and the loud world of action, where those ideas are tested. They must listen, not to be controlled, but to measure the truth of their own understanding. They must watch the crowd, not to follow it, but to know where its energy lies, because influence depends on guiding energy, not fighting it blindly. There is also a moral and psychological dimension to this. Influence without connection becomes cold, mechanical, and manipulative. When you stand too far apart, you may begin to see people as pieces on a chessboard, as tools to be used rather than individuals with their own dignity. This might work for a while, but eventually, it creates resentment and rebellion. The most enduring forms of influence are those that feel natural to those being influenced, that align with their desires and beliefs, rather than forcing them. To achieve this, the influence must remain in touch with what people value, what they fear, what they dream of. This connection cannot be faked forever. It must be cultivated through real observation, real listening, real empathy, even if from a slight distance. Standing apart without losing connection also means maintaining humility. Power has a way of tricking you into thinking you are untouchable, that your perspective is the only correct one, that your strength is permanent. But reality is always shifting, and influence depends on reading those shifts. The person who becomes arrogant and refuses to adjust will one day find that their power has slipped away while they were looking in the wrong direction. This is why the most skillful leaders periodically return to the ground, to walk among the people they lead, to see the world through their eyes. They do not stay there long enough to be captured by the crowd's emotions, but they stay long enough to keep their vision rooted in what is real. Standing apart is also about emotional distance. The influence cannot afford to take things personally, to become entangled in petty disputes, to allow anger or affection to cloud their judgment. But staying connected means remembering that emotions are what drive people, not logic alone. You must understand those emotions, even if you do not share them. You must see what people love, what they hate, what they fear, because these are the layers through which influence moves. A detached leader who ignores these forces will eventually find that no one follows them, because they have failed to speak to the human heart. The balance is difficult, but those who master it become almost unstoppable. They are the ones who can remain calm while everyone else is panicking, yet still speak in a way that calms others. They can stay strategic while others are impulsive, yet act decisively when the moment demands. They are trusted because they are seen as understanding the people they lead, but they are also respected because they never lose their own center. This combination, understanding without being controlled, empathy without being swayed, distance without disconnection, is what allows them to maintain both power
and influence over time. The truth is, influence is not just about controlling outcomes. It is about being able to shape them without forcing them. It is about becoming the invisible hand that steers events without drawing too much attention. This level of subtlety requires both deep insight and constant calibration, and both of those come from alternating between solitude and engagement. When you stand apart, you sharpen your insight. When you reconnect, you test it, and then you retreat again, adjust, refine, and re-emerge. Over time, this rhythm allows you to move with a kind of quiet authority that others instinctively trust, because you seem to know where things are going before they get there. Those who never stand apart are forever caught in the noise, slaves to the moment. Those who never reconnect are lost in their own fantasies, blind to reality. But those who master both states, who know when to withdraw and when to return, become the rare kind of individuals who can shape the course of events while appearing effortless. They are alone enough to be free, yet connected enough to remain relevant. And in the end, this is what true influence demands: to be above the crowd without floating away from it, to see the whole game without forgetting that you are playing on the same board. In the end, the path of power is a lonely road, but it is also the only road to clarity, strength, and influence that lasts. Solitude is not an escape. It is the training ground where the mind becomes sharp and the spirit becomes unshakable. It strips away illusions, silences manipulation, and builds a center that no storm can shake. But solitude alone is not enough. The one who seeks influence must return from it with a deeper understanding of the world, ready to act with precision and purpose. Power is not about being surrounded, it is about being grounded. Influence is not about forcing others, it is about guiding them with vision. To walk this path is to accept that you will often stand alone, but when you do, you will stand clear-eyed, untouchable, and free. That is the price of power, and its greatest reward.